the main experience and how it's laid out is 21 years for incarnation, 7 years to realize you've incarnated, and then the rest of your life to forget that, to really destroy that incarnation.
Yeah. Forget everything. No, nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that society will call this a midlife crisis. You know,
Yeah.
like, is it a crisis? This is an awakening. It's a gift.
And it's both.
I got this random invitation to a overnight San Pedro sweat lodge ceremony, which I have never done San Pedro or sweat lodge. And I was like, all right, we're doing this. So I just called off work today and got back covered, and I came out of it probably 4 or 5 hours ago. Um, and I had one friend that was like, "You can do it. Go record that podcast," and everyone else was like, "You should just cancel it and reschedule it." And I was like, "We're doing it."
Yeah, it's happening. It's
This
already.
is actually opportune. Like, you're a new human at this point. It's working. New juice.
Yeah. New human, new juice. Like, they're all of the questions we had before are now erased, and let's just hear it. What do you have to say?
I know.
I mean,
Welcome, Hasan.
Also,
Welcome.
welcome. This
thank
is our
you.
friend.
It does have an insane hangover. Like the head is just like insanely in like kind of like a week's hangover kind of. But besides that, feels amazing. Like the experiences. I don't, have you ever been in a sweat lodge, either of you?
Yes. Sweat Lodge, yes. San Pedro, I truly don't even know what that is. Like, I'm an infant. Tell me.
Honestly, so am I. And there's like we're offering San Pedro and two tobaccos and this whole thing, and I was like, I just didn't ask any questions. I trusted them completely, and I just took everything they offered me. Like it was an overnight decision, and I know one of the people. Like they brought two healers from Colombia, and there was one that had a 2 day ceremony where he had individual healings with people, and my partner went to that, and then she was like, "We need to do the sweat lodge." And I was like, all right, well, let's do it. If you're going, I'll come with you. And that was the decision to go. And it was a sister that held the sweat lodge ceremony. And it was really just a group of women holding it with men assisting the whole experience. And it was something along the lines of the sacred womb. So two tobaccos, the sacred womb. And the sweat lodge itself is going into the sacred womb. And then each of the four phases was the four directions. And it was very fascinating to see how they kind of took you through that whole experience while honoring the elements, which is also a huge mirror to alchemy, but in a completely different way, and taking you through the wheel of alchemy and like pretty much the Tibetan Book of the Dead, but in more kind of in their way, in their language. So it was completely taking us through death and rebirthing us out.
Yeah,
And
just
yeah,
on a casual Saturday evening. Just casual. Well, this is interesting though, because we had a conversation less than a month ago about an experience you had with the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So interesting that this is now coming up again for you for at least the second time. Have you
My
died yet?
mind's
well,
blown because this is also the third time this has come up just very recently.
Yeah.
Like, whoa.
Yeah.
well, this is all new to me. Like I am learning as I go because my partner Ali is studies alchemy and she's like really very kind of focused within a lot of it. And I learned what it was and the cycle and connected it to gene keys and how it connects to gene keys and how gene keys walks you through that as well. And now I can just see it when it's held in ceremony. It's across
Mm.
many cultures, they just have their own flavors.
Of
So
course. Yeah.
every ceremony is just killing you differently.
Yeah.
That part.
No, it's so resonant, honestly. It's wild.
Right. Like just on Friday, how you and I were killed with our astrology.
I'm murdered,
Murdered.
came back anew, and I'm like, oh, I'm a bird. I'm a baby bird.
I'm a baby bird that will ascend in this lifetime also.
period. I'm already on flight.
Yeah.
The bird, they instantly, you come out of the womb and they're like, okay, the eggshell's broken. My wings are here. I'm ready to take off. Truly.
I feel like we should just rewind slightly because most people, I don't want to say most, but let's say some people listening to this haven't understood a word we said yet. What's the
I'm
Tibetan
going to
Book of
go
the
ahead and
Dead?
say many
What's
don't
Gene
know
Keys?
the Book of the Dead.
Right. What's Gene Keys? Who's Hasan?
Okay.
So maybe let's start there.
I'll try to summarize my understanding of it.
Okay.
Um, like that you I always heard people like Zach Bush or Richard Rudd talk about practice dying, like you practice dying every day, try to die every day, and I was like, how do you even do something like that? Um, until I realized that alchemy is the process of dying, and the Tibetan Book of the Dead is taking you through the Bardo states so that you can learn how to die and prepare yourself to death before you ever die. And it's a way to actually come out of the incarnation wheel. And the Egyptian Book of the Dead the same way. The Emerald Tablets is technology that is used and applied in the same way. And then through Ali's just phenomenal mind, she was able to break down gene keys in the alchemical process and help me understand what I did on the first retreat that I hosted. And it was like, you literally activated this and you took them through this, and this is how you killed them by destroying their ego, and this is how you kind of initiated them, and this is how you act. And like, it just drew the whole map out. And I was like, holy shit, Gene Keys is also alchemy. And it's like, it's the Tibetan Book of the Dead and the Egyptian, like, it's all of these technologies broken down into the simplest terms that you can actually receive and understand and move through. And since then, I can see Gene Keys because it has the three aspects of every sphere: the shadow, the gift, and the city. And
Mm.
when you look at the shadow, it is lead. And when you begin to transmute and move through it and go into the city, it is transmuting lead into gold, which is your shadows into your gifts or your cities. And once you begin to work with that path and begin to activate it in your life, just reading it activates it in your life. That you're living life as the alchemist, and it just becomes a practice, and that is just how you kind of exist, and it slowly kills away on your ego so that you can be reborn again continuously instead of ceremony which just does it all in like one sitting and just destroys you.
Potentially. Depending what you're heading in with, I suppose. Preconceived notions or expectations, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
ego death every, and even the part of the dying every day, like I obviously haven't physically died, but I can pinpoint moments in my life, especially now where it's just happens so compact, where it's like, oh, I died that day. I died that day. I died in that moment. I died at that thought. I died from this interaction. And I can see that progression and the newness that it creates almost instantaneously, where it's like,
Mhm.
okay, I've seen the death, and then I almost have, it's not even premonition wise, but it's like you almost feel it before you experience it, then you experience it, and then there's the sort of revelation that happens where you're like, okay, I'm now anew.
Yeah. I mean, call it whatever we want to call it too. And this is what I love about this conversation is we could take all of this, like these other words and turn them into this is shadow work, this is lessons learned, this is growth, it's evolution, you know, whatever even layman terms we want to use, because what is even a death? What does that even mean, first of
Right.
all? Does it exist again then any longer after that? Is
Mhm.
there a shadow or a remnants of it that we carry with us? Is there is there love for it? Is it is there reverence? What's even for?
I feel like it's an upgrade. Like it's a timeline shift.
Hmm.
Because when we are in that timeline and we are living that out, we have to kill parts of ourselves so that we no longer exist on that timeline. We jump into a higher version of ourselves and call it upgrade, up level. Some people call it the downloads, like whatever you want to call it. It is receiving insights that upgrade your entire existence. And you can do that day at a day and kind of chip away if you're going to go through like something like the gene keys and like slowly move through it, or you can take a bunch of psychedelics and just kill it all at one time and like destroy that one phase of your life. But the thing about that is it doesn't change overnight. You're not going to wake up into this new body, a new version of yourself, a new life. Once that happens, you have to actually catch up and take all the actions to get to the point that you are actually moving towards. And that's the integration part that I feel like is missed most of the time. It's not like a
100%.
quantum leap. It's a process.
Sure. And not only is it missed, but I think people disrespect it.
Right.
It's almost like
Mhm.
they're handing their healing or their up level or their upgrade into the medicine without knowing that they are the ones that are the medicine. You know,
Yeah.
like the taking action part is the part.
It is the whole. Well, it's, and I think even just cyclically, it's like it's the missing step. It's a key in and of itself. And so if you're unlocking all of these things and you get to this final door, you haven't actually moved through it, right? You're still sitting in front of a locked door. You have to actually put the key in, turn the knob, right? Make sure it's the right key. Like all of these things are actually still in preparation of. Like it's not just a thing that happens to you. You are also involved. And I think that's where people miss that integration piece. They think it's like an outside experience. It's happening to me. It's like, no, no, no. You are part of it.
Yeah, it's happening for you. And this up level or the upgrade or the downloads is really the unveiling of the ego,
Like it's unveiling of self.
unveiling of self. Yeah.
Yeah, because so what I've understood through Gene Keys so far, because it breaks it down into the sequences of your 7-year cycles, and we spend the first 21 years of our lives, the first 7-year cycles, forgetting everything that we actually are and being conditioned by our environments, spiritually, emotionally, and mentally. And then we spend the next 7 years playing that out, which is age 21 to 28. If you think about that time, it's playing out your entire conditioning. And then when we hit 28 is when we hit our Saturn's return and we get smacked in the forehead. And that is most of the time when people have their awakening and begin to decondition everything that they have ever learned so they can actually step into who they are, remember who they were. And that is when this process begins. At a rare point, like rare cases where people start earlier and actually begin to decondition that. But the main experience and how it's laid out is 21 years for incarnation, 7 years to realize you've incarnated, and then the rest of your life to forget that, to really destroy that incarnation.
Forget everything. No,
Right?
nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that society will call this a midlife crisis. You know, like,
Yeah.
is it a crisis? This is an awakening. It's a gift.
And it's both. It's so funny though you say this part that it's not necessarily everyone's pattern to do that, because I don't find that that was my experience, but what you said still makes sense in a sense that I sort of always had this awareness, this awakening of the self, but it wasn't until I was actually quite old did I take action on it. Right? I was fully consciously aware that I was a reincarnate and this was a life that I could essentially ascend from. I've known that for a very long time, but I just sat in the awareness. Like I wasn't actually doing anything about it until I was about 25 to 27, where I was like, okay, now it's time to do something with that awareness. Because what the fuck is awareness without action, right?
Yeah, exactly. 27, 28 is the closing of that fourth 7-year cycle. And closing that is when you began that awareness cycle. And then if you kind of begin to look at the 7-year cycles, closing that after 28 is what, 35? And where were you at 35? You have deconditioned most of that at that point.
That was last
Still,
year. That was the
yeah.
craziest year of my whole fucking life.
Mhm.
No, no shit.
And I just turned 41. I thought I was turning 42. I think I was telling people I'm turning 42. I was like, wait a minute. I'm only 41. I gained a year. But anyhow, 42. There's another end of a cycle. And I find that really fascinating with just everything that's going on in life right now too. And that checks also for my 20s when I did my yoga teacher training like 15 years ago. That was my first probably my first ever hit of awareness like in my entire life. I, as a reflector, walked around as a child not knowing anything and knowing everything all at the same time. What was your experience? Because as a fellow reflector, I literally just took in everyone else's opinion, everyone else's idea, the way that people looked, and I just was like, I guess I'm that, this, that, the other thing. I had zero sense of self, zero.
Yeah, yeah. That was completely my environment. So any place that I was at, I was choosing based on that environment. The businesses I wanted to choose, the college career that I pursued, like everything that I did was based on the environment that I was in. And then not only that, even though I was no longer in that environment, I adopted that conditioning as my own and continued to play them out until I realized I was a reflector, and I was like, all right, who am I? Like, what do I actually like? Like, none of that really applies anymore. And I ended up like shutting down all my businesses and like just like I'm not gonna start another business. I'm not doing this. I'm gonna go into service and figure out who I am and what I want to do before I start something else. And I just like took 5 years of just doing that
Five
until I,
years.
yeah, again closing
Wow.
out another 7 year cycle. Like I
Right.
took started that when I was 28, and I am nearing the end of it now. Turning, what am I, 33, I think, next month or in 3 months. So, yeah, it all gets jumbled up.
But
So
it's time.
now I'm starting, like, all right, it's time to start choosing a path and actually creating and start a business. And all of that is coming into play. And by the time this 7 year cycle ends, everything's already established. And now we're starting the new chapter, kind of.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So, Murray, like when you were growing up, having a strong sense of self,
Mhm.
whether you applied it or not, the feeling was there, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
that is so foreign to me. And you're a projector in human
Mhm.
design. So, how does that shown up for you?
The projector part.
Yeah, and having a strong sense of self, because like I know having that many open centers, it's
Yeah.
also
Yeah. It actually kind of fucked my life in so many ways, good and bad. And I think it's just now I'm putting titles to it as I retrospectively look back at it. But I, truthfully, that was one of the ways in which I got myself out of so many like chaotic moments, depression, all of these things that I was experiencing because I could always, at the end of it all, like once it sort of settled down, I could always find that knowing, that connectivity that this is not it. And that was the initial question, like, what the fuck is this? Like, I remember being so young, I had to have been between like 5 and 7 years old. Like, what the fuck is this? This cannot be it. Like, I refuse to believe that this is it because it just felt like such shit. Like, this, honestly, if this is it, fucking kill me now. Like, that's the honest to God thoughts that I was having. Like, holy fuck, what is life? And so that question from a very young age allowed me to continue to pull the veils back of like anytime I had this really negative experience, I would experience it and then I'd be like, but that's not me. That's not real. This is something that I'm experiencing in the body, but that's not necessarily what I'm connected to because I was so disconnected from my body that I knew that that wasn't real because I wasn't having the same experience internally that I was externally. Like there was contrast all the time. And I think that's what was helpful is that there was contrast all the time because I could feel and I knew that the experience was fake. It was not real. Like, it felt like such an illusion. So I'm like, no, no, no. This, whatever the fuck that was, is not me. It's not real. It's not us. It's not that person. And it's not me either. Like, when, especially in relation to other people, they would do something to me. And oh man, like, I could see all parts of it. I could see their shadow. I could see their gifts. I saw them in total. And it helped me not be the vindictive bitch that I wanted to be
mm-hmm.
even though oftentimes I did play on it, like of course I wanted to ruin people's lives,
Wow,
and sometimes I did.
you're a Scorpio.
Right. I really prided myself in my ability to cut people's lives apart. I really did. I thought that was such a magical gift, and it is. And also, the gift outside of that is seeing them in their whole self, and also sort of knowing is that the right, not that I'm a teacher or a lesson giver, but I also felt like I was at the time, like I was on a high horse for a very long time. Is that the lesson for them? Like, do they need to be cut the fuck up with my words, or do they just need to like be let go and
Sure. Or
let
maybe
them
it's not a lesson for them, it's a lesson for
right,
you.
let the world, the universe, karma, whatever the fuck do its job. Sometimes I felt like I was karma though. I was like, no, this is going to happen right here, right now.
Uncover.
You're not getting out of there's no escape from this.
I'm glad we didn't grow up together.
Oh, would have hated, you would have hated me. I hated me. I was a little fucking bitch. And
So interesting. So when you say you could see like the shadows of gifts, like I understand that today as somebody that I feel like, and I have that gift. Hasan, you have that gift too. I mean, from the work that we've done together. How do you think that you saw them in terms of gene keys naturally? Like, you know how they all kind of have the three things. Do you think that that's all connected very innately, or is it all over the map?
Well, that's when he was mentioning that, I was like, oh shit, yes. That's what it felt like. And that's, I think, where my discernment came in of how to play, what role to play in that relationship, because I saw, again, like the very first things I always saw in people was the negative things. Like I am a pessimistic woman at heart. I love to see the shadows. I love to see the darkness. So I always saw people's darkness, but what that actually allowed me to see more than anything was the light, because the dark can't exist without it, right? And so I saw, or rather felt innately, what their problems are, where their issues stem from. Like just in conversation, I could feel the energy of their darkness, and I'm like, okay, that's super interesting. And it just unfolded into seeing their light, and then essentially what their gifts were. But the gift part took a little bit of time. I was so hell bent on the shadow. I was like, I see you, bitch, and I could read people like a book, and that's how I would kill someone. I just read them like a book.
You just got,
and they didn't
just
like
cut straight to the, just tore the wound open.
Shit.
Yeah, you tore the wound open, which Hasan, you're kind of doing in your retreat. Is that, but gently?
Gently?
Yeah.
Somewhat gently. We've figured out a process to do it. Before I answer that question fully, like as Abmari was speaking, I was not only like understanding how you see things, because it's trusting your intuition to be able to see that, but I believe one of the reasons that the three of us actually understand the language that we speak is not only because of we're interested in this information, we actually have past life experiences with this information, and it is a genetic activation that we have within us, and it is a remembrance, and that's why we remember this information so easily, and it like kind of clicks for us more naturally than it would for other people, because I actually can show other people gene keys and they're like, this is gibberish, like they don't understand a single word. And I show it to you too, and you're just like, yeah, I get all of this. And then like the way that I see it,
revelation.
yeah, and like just drawing new patterns, understanding things differently, understanding things that aren't even explained through the Gene Keys teachings. It's just remembering parts of it in a sense. But to answer your question, yes, we kill people gently. Instead of, well, the last two weren't too gentle. The last two, we did an 8 mile hike, backpacking hike, where everyone had to carry all their stuff, which is 30 to 40 pounds of weight that you're carrying through the wilderness. And then we're having several ceremonies on the way, and camping overnight. So it was like really kind of roughing it out. You poop in the woods kind of vibe. So this next one, we are definitely killing people more gently. We have a mansion, we have a chef, we're on 5 acres of land. It's in California, like in Mount Shasta, and we are going on different hikes every day, and we are going to different sacred sites and holding ceremonies there. And there are the 3 different sequences in Gene Keys, and a new one that just got released. And there's one that was never touched on, which is the pathway of individuation that starts from the bottom to the top. And with the alchemical information that I received from Ali and the new information that I'm understanding, I mapped it out to be able to take people through that process. So we are going through the pathway of individuation by connecting it to the other spheres, and everyone's going to get this like probably 100-page booklet that breaks everything down for them. But while we're there, we are specifically holding ceremonies to get you through the process. The first one is always break down your ego. We're going to show you why you've been a shitty person and make you feel bad about it.
It's my favorite. Shame ceremony.
Like kind of crack you open a little bit, and then we're going to show you why and what you learned from it. Kind of like the ceremony I just had, right? We go in, you're working on something, it shows you the negative part of yourself that you're trying to kill and remove. You see it, you sit with it, and I fucking love that it was just pure darkness, and I had my eyes open, like facing my demon straight in the face with like sweat. I'm like, this is made for me. I fucking love this. Not made for everyone, of course, which is why we're hosting a retreat in that way. It doesn't have to be that intense. And then once you face it and you understand it, you can actually heal it through the different spheres that you're walking through. And not just heal it, but understand why you experienced that, why it had to be the way that it had to be for you to learn what you needed to learn and step into the gifts that you're stepping into. And then it just continues up the sequence and it becomes break you open, kill you, integrate you, understand, and then celebrate. Because the top one is prosperity. You went through this entire hero's journey to get to prosperity, and now how do you actually fully step into that prosperity and have that full expansion and celebration? Because it's not all shit. We have to go through the shit to get to this, and it's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about prosperity for a moment too, because you think of the word, and I know with my very Western conditioning, for example, I think about money. Like that's
Yeah,
the first place that my brain would go. It's like, oh, prosperity is just having lots of money. But we all know that that's not joy. I mean, it would help, but
yeah,
that's not the definition of prosperity that you're talking about. So can you elaborate on what that actually feels like?
yeah. So prosperity can be wealth, and if you can achieve prosperity through your shadows, you don't have to be in your gifts to achieve prosperity, but achieving wealth through your shadows is just taking. I just want to take money from you. I want to take, take, take. It's just all been taking. But true prosperity from the Gene Keys understanding and from the gift in the city is in service. We cannot
Mhm.
achieve full prosperity unless we are in service. And sometimes it doesn't even mean making a lot of money. It just means serving in full, like just fully serving the evolution of humanity and healing of others. And that is what prosperity truly means. And as you begin to give from your heart and actually help others heal and grow, the rest is just a bonus. Like, sure, people are going to start coming and like you're going to attract people and things are going to grow and you're going to end up making money and doing all that, but it starts with service. And if it starts with a goal of making money, which I have done many times in the past, it always falls apart.
Mm,
And maybe it works for other people. That was just never my path. And as soon
Right.
as I
sure.
chose a path of service, things began to happen.
Right. Right. Because it wasn't grounded in dharma or love. So,
Yeah.
to pull this all together, it sounds like prosperity is love, right?
Yeah.
That prosperity is the byproduct of being yourself,
Mm.
being in service to love.
So that is why you have the three sequences in Gene Keys. Because the first sequence is the activation sequence. Is you have to learn who you are, what your blocks are, and how you can move out of those blockages. And we see the last sequence in the prosperity is the purpose sphere. And we can even see in spiritual communities and in the world, there's a lot of people that are playing out their purpose from the shadow frequency because they haven't opened their hearts yet. So they're trying to do this thing that is phenomenal, but they're not actually getting the right point because they're doing it out of ego, and they're not actually doing it with an open heart. But to break out of that into your Venus sequence, which is the heart opening, you have to overcome your ego and heal your feminine wound. And it's a triangle. You can go either way, but if you don't overcome your ego and heal your feminine wound, you'll be stuck in the attraction sphere, attracting just shitty relationships in the shadow sphere. But it is breaking through that and healing your wounds that helps you break through the spiritual quotient and actually step into the core wound and healing the core wound and healing yourself, activating your heart fully. And only when you activate and heal your heart and overcome your ego can you step into prosperity. It doesn't happen any other way. You have to go through the heart to step into prosperity.
Yeah. I mean, this is so fascinating to me because even the conversation, again, going back to Friday Abmari with the astrology, the way that it was explained, it was these steps of manifestation, but the manifestation was more of like a materialization. It all just is all just different language pointing all to the same direction. and the same outcome of knowing self and serving. The materialization being the just full expression of love in order to attract or in order to have true abundance. I just think it's so
Yeah.
fascinating, all the connections.
Yeah, many flavors. I mean, that's what incarnation is, right? Are we choosing to come here to incarnate and just take and destroy? Or are we choosing to actually do our part and serve in the evolution of humanity? Because it's gonna evolve with or without us. If you
Mm.
don't step into your purpose, someone else will come and step into that purpose. And biggest thing I learned when I was in Shasta, when I sat in meditation, like kind of in my full channeling phase, and I asked why me, and the answer was very humbling, and it was just because you listened. Like nothing special
Mm.
about you. Listened, and if you didn't listen, I would have chosen someone else that was listening. I was like, okay.
That's so important, though. There's nothing special about you. There's nothing special about any of us. And I think that's such an important concept for our egos to get over, because you're right. Like, this is that illusion of specialness is what gets people stuck in one of the triangles, if we're going to use gene keys, right? The ego. Yeah. And so
Yeah,
it's just so fascinating to me how this has all led up to now the launch of the main retreat specifically.
it was
Looking back, it's just like, here's
exactly.
your path.
So a big message I got is now this is created and that is the path. The rest you have to do to prepare for it. We've taken
Mm.
care of this, the rest is on you. And every single step of the way since that decision was made has been me clearing away my old self and dying over and over and over and over again to prepare myself to hold the frequency of that retreat. Because who I was 2 months ago or 3 months ago can't hold that. Still can't hold that. And that's why there's only 5 sales. That's why there were 4 sales, people from the community that came from the first 2 retreats. And then I had to kill this part of myself, and immediately a fifth person's like, yeah, I'm coming. So the success of the experience is based off how much of my old self can I kill to prepare my vessel for that experience. so, so
Good
yeah.
luck to everybody listening. Good luck. Okay, but here's a question. I don't even know how to say it. I'm just gonna ask the question. How? You know, it's one thing to say we're gonna kill away the ego. This part. Shed. And yeah, understandably, that's the path. That's what we all are trying to do. But how? And then how do we know that it's died?
Mm. I think it's just an inner knowing. Like even the people that already bought tickets, right? Like they're coming, they're attending. The web is already formed. When I go through an experience and an initiation, within a week they're reaching out to me and they had the same experience. Like they just had like exact same meditation, same experience, same death, and they're telling me about this. I'm like, I just experienced that last week. So once you make the decision to come to this, and the initiation is the payment, the universe takes care of the rest. Whether you like it or not, your life is going to change and you're going to be upgraded before you get there. You can hold the frequency once you are there.
Yeah, it's definitely a certain type of person you're attracting, no doubt. But for the layman, let's just say retreat aside, because you work with tons of different people, especially
Yeah.
doing charts and with,
Mhm.
the empath, what do you call them?
Empath types.
The
So
types?
they're energy
Yeah.
empath types. So breaking down what kind of
Yeah.
empath you are based on your human design,
Yeah.
Mm.
which
So, there's
coming next, what kind of psychic you are and how to tap into your psychic gifts and I'll activate all of that, which is what got me to Shasta to begin with.
yeah. But you work with an
Yeah.
array of people. It's not like it's just a certain thing. So let's pretend you're speaking to a layman who has not done this kind of work before, and they are just second guessing everything. It's like I feel like I don't need to go back there. Maybe it's just the thing just hasn't died yet. I think I answered my own question.
You know
Once
what's
the
weird?
part of the ego has died, it's a feeling that you cannot avoid. So if you're
People are
second
not.
guessing, this just hasn't gone to that stage yet.
Yeah, I have not had that experience at all because people are only drawn to me or find me in times where they're going through a huge transition and parts of
Mm.
them needs to die. whether they are moving to a different place, they're going through a bad breakup, they just had this horrible experience, they quit their job. It is always people finding me in transition points. And that, like, I don't think I've ever coached anyone or spoken to anyone that wasn't at a transition point and everything is dying in their life and they are ready to be reborn, upgrade their life. And sometimes they do, and it's just a discovery call and never talk to them again. But most of the time, they are going through transition and they choose to work with me because of that. Like, even Shasta, I happened because a customer decided she was going to move to Shasta and everyone was against her moving. And I spoke to her about it and I helped her and I supported her through the transition. And she was like, all right, I'm going to go. I need someone to drive me. I'm going to pay you to drive me. I'm going to pay for everything up there. I'm going to pay for you to fly back. And I'm going to give you all this stuff. And like, she just paid for everything and gave me a bunch of stuff and took me there on a like free trip to Shasta to help her move in. And then she's extremely autistic. I don't think she knows that. But while she was there, she was just giving me these messages. She's like a 70 something year old woman. Like she's got an inheritance from her dad. And like she's just kind of living life completely oblivious to a lot. And she's a phenomenal human. And she's just like telling me, hey, I think you're going to take people into spiritual pilgrimages here in Shasta. And I was like, where the fuck did that come from? um, and yeah, I had a crazy experience on Lionsgate there because I was like, it was Lionsgate, and I was there, and I was like, all right, for this day, I'm gonna go out and hike alone, and I'm gonna be by myself. She's like, all right, that's fine. And that was really the day where everything kind of came into play. It was the day I did specific invocations that started my path on alchemy. It was through that invocation that my partner began to be attracted to me, and we kind of found each other because of that. It is there that I began to experience different beings and different kind of activations come through. Hummingbirds, like it blew my mind how this hummingbird was giving me instructions. Like this hummingbird came at me and told me that I need to water the garden so it has food. And I was like,
Mm.
okay. So I went into Mary Sue, which was the person I was helping me. I was like, all right, we got to set up irrigation for the garden. And so I'm just trusting my intuition at this point. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. And she's like, all right, so we go, we buy all this stuff, we come back. I put all this stuff down. I was in California, so I just sat in the corner smoking a joint. I don't smoke now, but I was doing it. I sat in the corner, and this hummingbird just flies at me and just like flies right across me and gets my attention and then goes and hovers around all the stuff I just bought for the irrigation. And it's like, you need to do this now. I was like, what the fuck? This hummingbird's like giving me commands.
You're
And
like,
the
I just
whole
want to smoke a J.
experience,
Give me 5 minutes.
it was wild. It was really like I was mind blown that I know about hummingbird medicine and hummingbird shamanism and all that, but to have that experience, I was like, okay. I just kind of put it out and just like went and set up the irrigation, and then it just became like it started like flying around me after the water was on. It was kind of like giving me thanks, and the entire message through that entire experience, even helping Mary Sue move and the hummingbird, was service. You have to be in service. You don't get initiated, you don't grow, you don't get anything if you're not in service. And it is through serving without asking for anything in return that everything began to unfold.
That's such a powerful lesson, just that in itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there was so much more that happened that day, but that's like a little tidbit.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of it. It's wild. Like, speaking of synchronicities, just one thing after the other. And then for months afterwards, to,
Yeah,
to current, to
it
current.
just hasn't stopped. It has not stopped for like, yeah, at all. Like as soon as I came back, I went. My friend calls me. She's like, "I'm having a ceremony." She was holding a mushroom ceremony for a group, and like I went and like took mushrooms and ceremony, and that is when I received the message that you have to host a retreat in Shasta, and I was like, "That is absurd." And the message was just put it out, and we'll take care of the rest. Like, all right. So I messaged a couple of friends, and within 2 days, a friend was like, "Yeah, I know a retreat like space owner in Shasta," and connected us. And then we had insane synchronicities on Lionsgate that aligned to each other. And she literally told me 2 days before when I got the message that I need to put it out and someone will find me. She said that she was told that someone is going to find her in 2 days for a retreat in Shasta revolving around Gene Keys. and like we were both being guided by the same voice. And the amount of synchronicities based on that story alone that we had about a 3 hour conversation, just like talking about all the connections and everything. And she's like, yeah, you're doing it. Like, I don't care what it takes. You're going to do it. I'm going to help you out with the booking. I'm going to give you a different payment plan. Like, you're meant to be here. And that was like the beginning of it. And they're like, all right, we got this. Now we got to figure out how to pay for it. And that's speaking of chaos. That is when the hurricanes came through.
Yeah.
I live in Florida, so the hurricanes were horrible last hurricane season, and the amount of destruction was just insane. I got together with my friend Tim, like, let's go buy a chainsaw and just go around and help people. We're able men. I got a truck. Let's do this. And we just went around helping people cut trees and move things around. And like everyone's like, "Hey, can I pay you?" I'm like, "No, we're not doing it for money. You're all good." And like we just kept on turning down money. And then on the third day, we couldn't find any more people that needed help. So we just kind of sat down, just hanging out, grilling some burgers because we don't have electricity. I get a call from my friend, and he's like, "Hey, I just got a contract with the city to pick up debris. You have a truck. You want to make some money?" I'm like, "Sure. What does it pay?" He's like, $200 a load. I was like, "And how long does it take a load?" It's an hour. So like $200 an hour. I was like, "All right, let's fucking do it."
Yeah.
And
And then you
with
had the
that,
exact amount of hours that you needed, right?
it was insane that we
Yeah.
received our first check the day that the payment was due, and it was the exact amount for the first deposit and the $500. I think it was like the first payment and $500 deposit. Like it was the
Hmm.
exact amount,
Exact
like
amount.
not a penny
Wow.
more.
I know it's wild.
That's wild. But it also, I love that you mentioned even just the initial part of not accepting the payment because it really speaks to the how service leads to what it is that you require, and it's always going to give if you are in the energy of that. Because had you accepted payment from these other people, the whole trajectory would have been completely different. But
Yeah,
because it was coming from that heart-centered, intentional, this is of service place, delivery, right? Like signed, sealed, delivered. It already was, and so that's why the desire for you wasn't even there to accept the payment. It's like, no, it's not even. It's unnecessary
Hmm.
because it wasn't part of the plan.
yeah,
It's such a
yeah,
beautiful space to reside in. And, I will wager most people don't get to be in this energy a lot just because of the way society is structured and all of myself included. I work my fucking ass off as somebody that has an abundance of things in my life. And it also comes with an abundance of bills and responsibilities and different things. So I have one more question because there's a gap somewhere or there's a trajectory. I'll use that word, Abmari. I love that word. Where it's like you start here. You weren't always like this. There's some shit that went down in your life that got you connected to spirit, right?
yeah.
What was that for you? And what would you say to people listening going, this guy is on a completely different planet than I am? Like what's the point? I'm not going to get that, I don't know, quote unquote elevated. You didn't start here. You got here. So what did that
Yeah.
take?
I don't know if I can pinpoint like the specific place, but I would say right when I was turning 28, I was coming out of a nearly 10-year relationship, which that relationship took the entire previous 7-year cycle. We met to get at the beginning of that cycle and it ended at the end of that cycle. And I was doing this ridiculous challenge called 75 hard. And probably the best thing I got out of that was reading because I did not read books before that. And the first book I read was an Ayurveda, which gave me an understanding of myself. The second book I read, I think, was Joe Dispenza, which just cracked me open. And then I actually began to meditate and do all of these things, and my life just began to transform because I was very identified with the body and health and working out, and it was all body, and then it was all mind over body, and like both are just very much ego, mind, body, and just like identifying with that. But then finding meditation and seeing how meditation began to change my life and actually beginning to understand energy is more important. And then at the same time, of course, I get hired to sell crystals. And now it's my job to tell people about energy and learn about energy and like frequencies and colors and chakras and all this stuff. And just full immersion into that world. But I think reading is really what changed my experience, because if I didn't read, I wouldn't have been able to integrate my experiences. And as a Virgo, I didn't ask anyone for help. I was doing it all myself.
Right.
It's the books that I
Classic.
read by Eckhart Tolle, by Joe Dispenza, by like all these phenomenal minds that when things came up for me and repressed memories came up for me, I was actually able to integrate it, understand it. Took a lot longer to forgive it, but begin to move through it. And it's been that 7 year process of actually just forgiving self, letting go and killing that old self that has been hurt and hurt others. And like, because that 7 year cycle that happens after 21 is when we are most toxic, probably. And we are hurting people and we are playing out the conditioning and the pain and the just the shit that we had to get programmed with. And for me, the hardest part was forgiving myself. Like it was easy to forgive others, very easy. I forgive you for what you did to me, cool. But forgiving myself for how I showed up, that was the harder part. And that one probably took
Yeah.
years, especially I've spoken to you, Jill, about this, how my emotions were blocked. And I processed emotions with my mind. So it was very easy to move through all of that. It was only this year, through meeting my partner, that unblocked my emotions. And I am, for the first time in probably 10 years, feeling emotions. And now I have to revisit all those things I thought I healed and actually feel them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you're gonna feel just all of them before August.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's been. You gotta feel them, you gotta face those demons, you gotta literally exercise that energy out of you so that you can release it and purge it. And like that's what my ceremony was. It was seeing those things that have attached to me that I saw as outside of myself and saw
Mhm.
as psychic attack on myself, and realizing that it has only attached to me because I haven't healed those wounds within myself and I haven't
Mm.
acknowledged that part of myself. And it was through acknowledging them and healing them and transmuting them and giving them thanks and putting them back into the fire and the ceremony that things actually began to change. And it was wild because I feel like as I was doing that, it influenced the entire ceremony, because as I am transmuting that old self that hurt others, people began to cry. And like things began to, I'm like, holy shit, this is like, we're all connected in here. Like, this is,
What's happening?
Well, you're very careful with who goes in the lodge with you. It's like, hold on, where's your shit at?
well, I feel like the person that was leading it, she can see everything that everyone is going through. She can see the threads. Like her magic was so on point, and how she was able to weave things and the things that she was saying and the invocations that she was bringing through. Like it was literally, I was sitting there and completely, because there were like men and women sit on separate sides. Um, my partner Ali and I were like, all right, we're not going to be sitting together. But as we were walking in, women went first, and then when I went in, I met up with Ali, and this guy was like, yeah, yeah, go ahead of me, and he let me go ahead of him, and like we were next to each other. And then when we went inside and crawled in to sit, we were the center point at the back of the tent that held the masculine and feminine. And like right in front of me was the entrance, and I was like, this is fucking wild. And I have no doubt that it was intentional by the facilitators. Like they knew exactly what they were doing. They were so methodical and playing off like they just didn't really realize, but it was so like intentional of how they placed us.
What a
And
gift.
it was yeah, like they were just the way that they did it. I'm still in awe. Sitting there in the center now, I have the women on the left side and the men on the right side, and just having that experience, and not just that, but seeing how everyone showed up and seeing the patience and resilience of the women, and how when they were giving water, the men were freaking out. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, okay. I was like, women are the ones that are leading with strength, and not just
Mm.
leading with strength, they're actually leading the entire ceremony and leading all of these men in this ceremony. And the way that it's being held and the way that it's being guided and the way that the women are showing up, I was like, I just surrender to this. I let go. Like, women take over. Like, this was like, I'm not doing
Which is
anything.
such a, yeah, like a switch of feminine and masculine energies. I love that.
Well,
Yeah, yeah, it was a wild experience. It really was. Like, there was obviously some like masculine that were like very grounded and like being present, but then and then even while I was having that experience and I'm judging them, right? She goes and speaks about letting go of judgment and not judging your brothers, and like I was like, she's hearing what I'm thinking. Like, in my moment of like realization and like bowing down to the feminine, she kills my ego for judging the masculine.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, yeah, it was a wild experience. Like those women were just, yeah, I've never been held in a ceremony and sacred womb in that way. It was such a potent experience. I don't know if I'd say I recommend it for everyone, but like there was even like seasoned sweat lodgers there that hold ceremonies and have been through them like massive initiations. After that, they're like, yeah, that was an intense one. Like that she destroyed us.
yeah, there's a sacred power, and I think we as outsiders don't really understand tradition as much as somebody who holds the space, because there are even rules about women entering in these sacred spaces. You can't be menstruating, and there's, like you said, they have to be separate. And for us on the outside, we think it's like, oh my God, they're anti feminist. It's like, no, actually, they realize how strong and powerful women are, and
Yeah.
that's the reason why. It's not because they're not invited, it's because the power is so strong that it has the ability to influence to such a high
Mm.
level degree. And it's very funny for us to think like, there's this wound, and yes, that's probably true, but it's our wound to see it that way. They have such reverence for the feminine and the resilience and the power in what you're saying, that they're like, whoa, we're gonna need you to all take a step back so that we can do what we want to do here and you not take over this space. So I think that is very, very interesting. But what I wanted to ask you, what you were saying, it brought something up, and maybe I have a different school of thought, or maybe it's I just am wording it differently, because I think for me, I'm so intentional with my language. But when you talk about like this idea of death and this repeated ability to, let's just say, kill off parts of yourself, for me, I don't necessarily believe that fully. I think to an extent that once it's killed, it's gone. And I just, something about me doesn't allow myself to see that, because I think somehow they still exist. It's just
Yeah.
a matter of integration almost. It's like, okay, I
That's the
see
word.
that part of myself, right? And I think, speaking from my own experience, right? I know how, when, and it's still totally available to me to be a little bitch,
Hmm.
right? That's not gone from my experience, but it's also not necessarily the thing that I always choose, or the first thing that I go to, or the way in which I identify myself anymore. It's no longer an identification. It just is. It's an existing thing that is there, but not part of my like forward experience, if that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I
It's
feel,
not gone, it's integrated. And that's why the
yeah.
process, like once we kill ourselves, now we have to integrate that part of ourselves, understand it. I mean, the mantra that I've developed and I use for myself is compassionate understanding. We kill that part of ourselves with compassion, not with hatred, not with anger, not with resent, with compassion. And I like the word understanding because it ties into gene keys, because the gene keys helps you understand those parts of yourselves and why you played them out the way that you did. And when you hold compassion and understanding to those parts of yourself that you're killing, you can actually integrate them in the right way. And once they are integrated, it doesn't mean they're gone. If you want to call that part of yourself up and play it out, you're able to in a second, but you begin to understand it doesn't control who you are. You are in control. And the more you kill those parts of yourself and integrate them, the more you're taking the steering wheel and actually control yourself.
Yeah, yeah. This has
Yeah.
blown my mind for so many reasons, because we're talking about we're obviously all here, right? You can see us, you can hear us, we're alive. But I'm taking, because I love death at this point in my life, I'm taking this even further into like actual physical death, right? Nothing is gone,
Hmm.
right? You literally can't kill something because energy cannot be
Yeah.
destroyed. And so what you're saying really is resonating to that point for me, that even though something is dead, it's not gone, actually. Like that really actually doesn't exist. It's still in the field, it's still, there's still, it's fractalized kind of in other places in the world, still being, it still can be felt, experienced, understood, but it's not something that our eyes can physically see because it's not that anymore. It's now something new. And that's essentially the death part, is like it's something new. It's not gone, but it's now we get to see it in a different light or experience it in totally different ways.
Let's tie
That's
it
the
back to the
alchemy
Book
of
of
it.
the Dead, right? Exactly.
The
That's the
alchemy.
alchemy, the books of the dead. Like, only now in this phase of our life is death a bad thing. In the past, death was celebrated. It was a celebration. Like, you look forward to death. That is your graduation, which is why you study the Book of the Dead, which is why you study the Egyptian Book of the Dead, because you are studying the Bardo states so that when you do die, you are able to break out of that incarnation cycle and actually step into that graduated phase. But right now, like I think I heard Zach Butch talk about it, we are so numbed out and drugged out, and like the death process is so medicated that we don't actually realize that we are going through that graduation, and it keeps us trapped and reincarnating back into a different vessel and having to play it out differently because we are not preparing ourselves to evolve in that way. We're not preparing ourselves to ascend in that way. And it doesn't disappear, like you said. You're either going to reincarnate or you're going to actually understand death and realize I'm liberated and enjoy your liberation in this new field of existence and not get trapped into that same loop. I feel like that's what Buddhism teaches you, how to liberate yourself from the karmic loop. And it is
Mm-hmm.
all about, they're kind of extreme, all about attachment and detachment and all that. But different flavors teach different things, and we get to choose what flavor of alchemy we like, just like we choose what flavor of religion we like, and like they're all a little different.
Mm-hmm. Right. And there's not one way, which is beautiful about the whole thing. You know, we talk about this in shadow work a lot too, where I mean it's the same thing, again, just different language, where triggers are triggers for a reason. You're triggered, and the trigger is a message, right? It may affect you in one way today, but post alchemy, post integration, post healing, whatever you want to call it, it just will not affect you in that same way any longer. It doesn't mean that the trigger itself disappears. That thing was always present. It's how we respond to it that's changed.
Yeah. And I mean, to kind of talk about how all languages connect, right? If you look at the
Okay.
Gene Keys chart and even the Human Design chart, it is based on the Kabbalah tree of life. So you
Yes.
have the Kabbalah tree of life that Basil Valentine's Wheel of Alchemy is based on. The ceremony that I just went through, invoking the four directions and four elements, is also based on that same wheel. You look at Nordic culture and Yggdrasil, the tree, you can map out that tree as the tree of life as well. Like it is all alchemy in different cultures that we have now called pagan or just kind of demonized and don't actually practice and realize that it is all teaching you how to alchemize yourself and it's internal alchemy so that you can actually evolve and grow. But they have been pushed out of our societies and pushed to
Right.
be forgotten and only taught in secret societies as like a secret knowledge per se. Um, so yeah,
Dark
even
magic.
Right, but I think even that, like, that almost makes it more powerful.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
yeah,
Keep hiding these things. It has to have an equal and opposite. And what you like, what could be more powerful? And I feel like that's such an interesting point in the time that we are in because there's such fear all around. And it's like, yeah, okay, like you can see that. And also you can see this opposite effect that what is it creating is something actually completely radical, but not radical at the same time. It's just a remembering, but it's
Yeah.
going to be such an immense and deep and explosive remembering that it's going to change the trajectory of all of us.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's going to
yeah,
be great.
Just bye.
Right? podcast.